Hey y'all, welcome to the Crenshaw Dairy Mart 5-year anniversary roundtable. My name is Ashley Blakeney and I'm the executive director here at Crenshaw Dairy Mart. We are filming this on our 5-year anniversary. It's February 28th, 2025. We are taking this opportunity to reflect on the origin of CDM, all that we've accomplished over the 5 years, and to look forward. And joining me today are our 3 co-founders, reza, dorriz, olivas, and patrisse, cullors. Cool. So to start us off, I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves, who you are in relation to Crenshaw Dairy Mart. Why don't we start with you, Patrisse?
Hi everybody, it's so good to be here. Thank you for rallying us, Ash, to sit together and reflect on the last 5 years, so half a decade.
Woo!
So wild. My name is Patrisse Cullors, and I'm a mother of a really fun child. I'm a daughter, I'm a really good friend, and I'm a community member here in Los Angeles. And I love this town. How about you?
Okay. My name is olivas. I am one of the co-founders here at Crenshaw Dairy Mart, and I'm also an artist and educator. Also a husband and a partner, or also a brother, a sibling, a son, all those things. I say those things because it's a lot of my work deals with just life experiences in relationship to my family and their story, coming from Mexico, Chihuahua, Mexico to be specific. A lot of my work deals with labor and leisure and its access to liberation. I think the history of labor is really interesting, and looking at my own family history and using personal archives and even collaborating with my family on these works to tell the story of what a family has done, and the labor that they have poured in, and love they have poured into their children, but also the greater community. And I feel like a lot of these stories people can resonate to them. I'm not just the only person that has this story. I'm just one of the people that is sharing.
Just kidding. My name is Eddie Reza. I am an artist and writer. I'm a project-based artist. I'd like to think. Sometimes I struggle with navigating through my practice. I feel like project-based gives me a lot of liberties in moving through certain discourse or certain processes that inform me intermittently through certain things, and I am able to bring values through collaboration in community into those processes, as well as them informing me.
Okay. I am Ashley Blakeney. I am an artist and professional caretaker. My background is in photography. Photography is something I've loved since I was 15 years old. Also trained as an arts healing facilitator. And right now I am just called to listening, and really leaning into my love of music and finding the through lines and the connection points within music, and specifically the process. I am a lover of process, specifically artist process, and which is why it's such a great privilege to be surrounded by artists all day, every day. I think that there's such a vulnerability that gets placed into what we make and what we share with the world, and that is the piece of it that I love the most. We are actively currently in the Crenshaw Dairy Mart gallery. which is right at the intersection of Crenshaw and Manchester, which means we are in the midst of all the action. We get all of the sounds off of Crenshaw Boulevard. We get all of the flights that cross over us into LAX. And it's part of it. It's part of our journey. It's part of our spirit. And we, Crenshaw Dairy Mart, is an artist collective and an art gallery that is centered at the intersection of art and abolition, with our core values laying in ancestry, healing, and abolition. And so my question to the co-founders, how did the Dairy Mart come to be? How did we get here? And how do you see the Dairy Mart as like the ultimate artistic collaboration between the three of you?
We first met each other at USC at art school, and that's where a lot of the conversations started, thinking about art and abolition, and listening to Patrisse talk about and Ali Reza talk about what would it look like if there was a place where abolitionists and artists would come together. What would that look like? So just really imagining that together of a space. We were thinking about the Antelope Valleys, really thinking about the land. Out of nowhere, Patrisse came up to us like, hey, I have a spot for us, and this is like literally like maybe weeks, like so quick, it's wild to say something and then come true, it's something that is very spiritual. And we got invited, Patrisse got invited to this space in Inglewood by Miss Carla, which was a child caretaker of Patrisse's child. And on the other side of the parking lot was this empty Dairy Mart, googie architecture. Imagine like the, classic 60s architecture of Los Angeles that was happening during that time. Drive-through, where people would get their candy and sodas and chips. Just there's so many stories that I hear about this place. And we were invited, and we went on a little field trip. We checked it out, and we were just really amazed. My mouth was wide open. I couldn't believe it. To see like this space and to imagine what we would do, what it would look like to collaborate with the community. And that was a lot of incubation, like really not moving right away. Coming from USC, we had understanding and other practices as well, like being a social practitioner, understanding not to come in and parachute into a community. So we really talked and did it with a lot of intention to take our time and talk to members of the community. But it all kind of started from there. That was the real start of it all, and kind of just happening really fast, and but at the same time very spiritual, very divine. This is part of the destiny. It's just like, all right, cool, like get your work pants on, let's go.
I love hearing you tell the story. What's your part of the story, Ali Reza?
I think I love like the different vantage points that we all come from, because I think of this beautiful collective that's coalescing at a time when we were in a larger institution that we had questions with and points of inquiry with, and I feel like it was really beautiful to see us kind of in unison be in a place in grad school where we were able to ask for our needs and have our needs met, and see the power of collectivizing and seeing that happen within a cohort dynamic. And I feel like that influenced a lot and created the precedent for a lot of how we would move through space and how we would imagine alternatives in the arts economy. I feel like that was very evident, and like we also had like critique of the arts environment already in our vocabulary as three individual artists, distinct artists, and I feel like that felt very potent in our individual practices while we were in art school, and that felt like it very organically leached into how we would like utter this space into existence. It was kind of trying to imagine an alternative to the business as usual arts institutions that have existed.
You know, for me, I really do see so much of this mart in its current form, like as a physical space, is because of your leadership, Noe. Like, yeah, from the design of the studio space to this gallery space, like we spent a lot of time talking this through and like what we were gonna do and how we were gonna develop it, and like so much of your vision around just the design of this space and the caretaking of this space. Alireza, when we first got here, like Alireza was like, I don't feel comfortable being somewhere where I don't understand its history, its lineage, and like became instantly the resident researcher and like really mapped out how our practice here in Inglewood is a part of a longer legacy of Black-led curators, orgs, art institutions. And that was so grounding to have that like level of intention and connection. And yeah, we've just been building these relationships to these Black-led orgs, and it feels like such an important part of this conversation around ancestry and lineage. And you know, for me, I was very interested in this space, or I was very interested in building with the three of you, or the two of you, also you later, you come in later, but the two of you, because I had felt so burnt out by movement space and so burnt out by the ways that artists are so undervalued in every space. And I'm an institution builder. I like building institutions. I don't like doing things by myself. It's boring. You don't get enough done. When you build an institution, you can go up against other institutions. You can collaborate with other institutions. You can inform and develop and respond from an institutional place. And so when we first got here, I really told the both of you, you know, like before we open our doors, like let's go slow, because the minute we open our doors, we can't close them again. And spending 2 years here and just like thinking and processing and bringing people into this gallery space, and you know, from across Inglewood, from across the county, and trying things out and developing them, and it was really special. It was like a really special time in that first 2 years before we even launched in 2020. And that feels like an important part of our history, because we didn't just get here and then like open up doors and change things and change color. And you know, we talked about like keeping the name the Crenshaw Dairy Mart, like retaining that resource that is from this community. And we've learned so much as leaders in this space. And yeah, it's been I love this phrasing, like ultimate artistic collaboration, because it really has been. It's been like how do we bring the three of our skill sets, from running a dressmaking business to watching your family be laborers to my work as community organizer, and like mix that with artistry and like bring that here. And I feel like we really have taken that responsibility like really seriously, and we really have dedicated a lot of our brain power and ethos and like understanding into this space. And it's been it's been an honor. And you know, one of the things that the three of us really understood, mostly I did, which is like none of us can be EDs. That's not our skill set. I have been an ED too many times. Too many fucking times. And it is not a fun job. We love you, Ashley. And it's actually a setup. It's a big setup. The nonprofit system is a full setup, and we can have some of that conversation later. But I've been following your career since I've known you, both as a photographer, but also as an arts administrator. And that combination of being an artist and also an arts administrator is a really difficult skill set to find. And watching you do that work and bringing you on as our project manager for the first pod at Mocha, I just knew, like, part of my individual talent is knowing other people's talents. And I was just like, oh yeah, this bitch is an ED. Like, this is like, I don't know if she's gonna like it, but I really would love her to be our ED. I want her to be our leader. And I feel very grateful that you said yes to us. And there are things that you have done I wouldn't even thought about. I wouldn't even been able to do. I wouldn't have had the skill set for it. And I have been an ED like 5 times, seriously. And so you're a natural, like, operations. You have an operations brain and an artist brain, and those two brains together usually don't exist. And it's just been an honor to have you be a part of our little crazy ragtag team.
Oh my gosh, I'm a little emotional.
Good, it's good for the camera.
Should have brought some tissue.
Yeah, what? Wow, thank you. I often say that, like, being the ED of Crenshaw Dairy Mart is, like, the greatest honor I've ever had. It felt to me like a no-brainer to embark on this journey with y'all, and, like, to go back to the beginning of being brought on as a project manager. And I only knew you. I didn't know you all. I had met y'all at Patrisse's birthday party, 2019. Actually, to be very specific. But I didn't know y'all. But I think what was so pivotal for me was coming into this space when it was just the 3 of you, and it felt like I knew you all. Like, the 2 of you just immediately took care of me in the same way that you take care of Patrisse, and it just was like this instant trust, and I could see that you all cared for me because of your trust in Patrisse, and I was able to trust you all because of her trust in y'all. And it felt just very natural. And saying yes to this was, like I said, it was a no-brainer because this is the type of work I've always wanted to do. I knew I had this rare brain of being able to be arts administrator with an understanding of artists, but I wanted to use these skill sets specifically for Black folks. Like, I was really, really burnt out of being exploited in traditional nonprofit settings. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And I knew that the way for me to still do the work that I loved was to do it with people that I knew cared about me and that I cared about, and very clearly cared for our community. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like, it astonished me that you all had so much trust in me and just knew that we would figure it out. And it has felt, and is very beautiful. Ironically, I was gonna say, there's so much trust that we have in each other as we are building the plane while we're flying it. I think why it seems like I'm a natural in this role is because I've learned very clearly, like, how I do not want to work ever again. And I've learned very clearly what type of work spaces and work cultures do not serve us. And, you know, coming from places where I was the most talented, so I held the most labor, or I was working 12-hour days but could barely pay my rent, or, you know, there were so many things that had been ingrained in me as a person working in nonprofits that I just knew immediately, like, this is the space to experiment and to set the bar. And that bar looks like paying a living wage. And if we're going to be a team of artists have to be able to make a living. The reason I'm not an artist or wasn't an artist was because I couldn't pay my bills, and that's what led me there. But imagine a world where you actually have what you need as an artist. And I feel like that has really driven a lot of how I've tried to build this organization. And a lot of the choices I made were a reflection of seeing you all live our core values on a daily basis. And I feel like that's so rare. I've been in many places where we have values, but they're not actually embodied and lived up to by leadership. and every single day I see each of you living our values in real time and practicing in real time, and that is the inspiration source. So I just feel really grateful that y'all chose me. You picked me, and it's really beautiful. I wouldn't do this with anybody else. So I feel really grateful.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. All right, next question. So we often say CDM operates at the intersection of art and abolition, and I would love to hear from you all. What role does CDM play in the art space and in the abolitionist movement?
Thank you for that. I'd like to start because I've just been looking up at this bookshelf of abolitionist authors. Yeah, I really, really appreciate how much we've studied abolition, just like as a collective and as an institution. Lisette Lasso, who you all know, who I work with closely and I've known since she was 15, we talk a lot about like what does it mean to build an abolitionist institution, and like what does it mean to build something that you're not exploiting the people who work at it, where you're leaning into this concept of care, where you're building out a framework around how we work in industry differently.
Yeah.
And I think about that here at the Dairy Mart a lot. And I wonder too, it's like, because we don't live in an abolitionist world, I'm often wondering how institutions like ours can thrive. Like, is it possible for us to live beyond a few years because we don't live in a structure that isn't invested in not exploiting? But while we're here, we're experimenting. And I feel like abolition is truly an experiment, as art is an experiment. I think it takes an artist to dream of abolition. I think it takes deep creativity to undo the ways we've embodied punishment and revenge and carcerality. And so I see the work that I do at the Dairy Mart, I see it as part theorist, because I've been theorizing around abolition truly since my childhood, whether I had the language about abolition or not. Abolition for me is this deeply rooted concept that offers a generation of us something wholly different than what we've ever experienced before. Something that is, like, imagine growing up in an America where your gifts are seen as gifts, not threats. Your gifts are seen as gifts, not something to be exploited, and it's tied to a community practice. So for me, abolition is also, it's not an individual practice. You can't practice abolition by yourself. You have to practice it in community, and that's what we're trying to do here at the Dairy Mart. That's what we're, through our projects, through the Abolitionist Pod, through our fellowships, through our workshops, like, we are always thinking about what's the abolitionist lens in this. And I think the other part of me is like another part of my work here at the Dairy Mart is bringing strategic partners here and like having them see the work we do and how we work together. And sometimes that goes really well and sometimes it does not.
Yeah, I just appreciate everything that you do, Patrisse, I think your teachings of abolition has really opened up the new avenue, of what does it look like when you do abolition, what's it mean to be an abolitionist? And abolition has so many definitions across the board. There's this art portion, which is, we're trained as artists, we know how to make art, we know the significance of how art plays into our healing, how we can express ourselves, how we can create a voice in some sense, and also encouraging others that they have a voice as well. And when that voice is also in collaboration, that voice is a lot louder. And when I think about abolition, when I was just listening to you talk, the thing that abolition, and this is kind of reminds me of one of your pieces, is like this neon purple sign that says abolition is ... And for some reason I just kept thinking abolition is a good character. You know, I think that within this framework and how we are engaging with each other, how we're in relationship to each other, and how are we loving each other in a way, and also being accountable for our actions. I think the abolitionist portion, part of this team, which I love, because we grow so much, and it's hard too, because like, you know, accountability looks like that. You know, accountability is like, hey, these are my needs, this affected me or impacted me, and kind of going from there. And I love that portion of abolition, because like it reflects of like, how can I do better, and also for myself and for my community. I'm also supporting on the abolitionist pod, which I love to do, because I think the abolitionist pod is really made up by a lot of people. It's a lot of collaborators, a lot of designers, engineers, fabricators. But the most important part of that job that I love the most is when we have those conversations and we meet with these engineers and designers that have no idea, or maybe have somewhat of an understanding what abolition is. And that bringing that conversation to the table in these like Zoom meetings, and it's like, hey, we're trying to build this, what do you think? And it's under the framework of abolition, healing, and ancestry. This is what we're doing. And those are the seeds, like those small conversations are the seeds that make the world a better place, you know, to understand that abolition is care, is love. As you mentioned a quote during the pandemic, Patrisse, you said, lean with love, I believe, or was it something around that, something like that. But it always stuck to my heart, because it's like, yes, we should be moving in that way. Yeah, and it's also a pleasure, and it's really fun just to use that side of my brain, and also the side of, you know, getting people to do something creative along our values, and it's been interesting to see also others being very supportive of it, and also aligning with those values, and also learning together.
I think of a lot of things. I'm thinking a lot about what you shared, Patrisse, and about like what it means for any institution to embody abolitionist values. I've had the tremendous honor to be in a position within, like, as one of the tenets of abolition, when we talk about like mutual aid as a tenet, or care as a tenet. Over the years, as much as I may not maybe embody it as much as I wish I could, and I wish I would, but I think of listening as like a tenet of abolition, and how to embody abolition through listening, which admittedly I'm working on. It's a process, but I think I've had the tremendous privilege and honor to kind of be in this position of being an active listener and documenting and kind of collating all of this information that I've learned from you, Patrisse, really about what the history of the movement of abolitionist work and grassroots abolitionist work towards decarceration, towards moving against dissolving police institutions, and looking at the art of that and seeing that. I've had the tremendous honor to be working with you on that, and like seeing that and turning that into case studies as how the Crenshaw Dairy Mart is working on the other end of the way and introducing that vocabulary into the arts economy, and how artists don't often, exactly what you shared, Ashley, it's like artists often cannot live dignified lives when they're working around the clock, when they can't have, exactly what our fellowship has been addressing. Mm-hmm. I think those ways of looking at those exercises and listening as abolitionists can cultivate a lot of understanding, and care.
So, a couple of years ago, as a team, we embarked in an embodied somatics practice with some of our trusted ecosystem and partners. And in our somatics practice, we crafted the declaration, we are a commitment to building and sustaining a sanctuary of care and creativity. And so I just want to take a minute and just hear from y'all, what does this mean to you, this commitment, but also why does this feel particularly important that we stay committed to this commitment right now? And for context, we're filming this February 28th, 2025.
Yeah, being a commitment to building and sustaining a sanctuary of care and creativity feels very, like, just true. A true statement for who we are and what we're doing. And I think, as we're traversing probably one of the hardest moments in history, at least for me, like my hardest moment in history, and given the politics of the world and the rolling back of Black people in leadership. It's not DEI, it's Black people in powerful positions in leadership, the rounding up of undocumented people, the utter chaos, like we're living in chaos. Seeing CDM as a place of sanctuary and creativity is like literally what the world needs right now. And being able to have and host a brick and mortar where people can gather and be present for each other, I don't take it for granted.
I think for me, these words is really through action. And that's what's coming to my mind is like the act of creating that sanctuary, that care, and being creative. And I think about a lot about spirit too, being responsible for our spirits, ourselves, and to nurture our spirits, especially during these times. I think that's the number one thing that I keep coming back to is what to look like to feed our spirits, to feed each other, because that's what is being oppressed, is our spirits through capitalism, imperialism, patriarchy, white supremacy, all the things that Bell Hooks really names in her books. By being that sanctuary is a big responsibility. That's why it's really, for me, it's hard to answer because it's really an emotional thing. It's being the best leader that you can be, but also being very real and honest.
I suppose this is like a bit of an anecdote, but I think something that's coming up for me is like that time where we were in these this coalition of sorts that were able to be in this somatics exercise and in this somatics retreat, to be all together, this multi-organizational kind of space where we're doing these exercises which are reminding us of none of us are doing anything alone. And that is something that I keep, what you said earlier, Patrisse, around it's like boring to do things alone. It's like we're not steeped in our abolitionist values and in our integrity if we're doing things alone. And I think those exercises are testament to that. What we're doing in somatics, in those workshops and exercises, we're being embodied and rowing together or breathing together or doing our collective or individual centered no's or centered yeses or centered maybes. All of that is in being in our individual integrity as part of the greater whole. So that when I think of sanctuary space, I'm thinking of how all of that informs being a sanctuary. I'm just trying to think of how, not the ants. I'm thinking of how when we are building these cross-organizational coalitions, informally or formally, we're building out these rhizomes of sanctuaries together. And I'm thinking of how the Crenshaw Dairy Mart has been so integral in mapping these coalitions or mapping these coalitions and organizations together, where we are noticing the power in numbers in our individual team and how we are identifying that in other collectives and organizations. And that's what creates economies of safety and economies of care across the map.
Yeah, I think my relationship to our declaration, I feel like I call back to it daily as my reminder of why we're doing the work, including the harder moments of this work. But I feel like right now I'm especially leaning into it because I feel like this is wholeheartedly like my personal safe space is at Crenshaw Dairy Mart. And I think as a person who in crisis, you know, there's fight, flight, freeze, and I tend to freeze. It's a really grounding reminder to know that this is a space to come to like receive care, lean into our creativity, which is like two of the things that are dampened the most quickly in these tumultuous moments, right? It's like they don't want us to be creative, they don't want us to receive care, they kind of don't really want us to have dignity, they don't want us to exist, essentially. And Crenshaw Dairy Mart for me is a reminder that there are people that care about me, there is a space that I am safe, and there's a space that I can lean into my creativity. And so I feel at this point in time, this declaration is like on daily repeat for me. And it means so much that we can, as much as we can, offer this to our community of like, I deeply, deeply hope that everybody that has ever engaged with us holds that sentiment of knowing that like this is a place that you can show up and be cared for and lean into your creative self. So I don't know, I mean, I feel like it's always been important for us to exist, but it feels like especially right now is like we have to be here. Let's reflect. Let's look back. So we're 5 years old, which is still very new and very young. And I think it's so incredible all that we have accomplished in these 5 years. And so I want to open it up and hear from y'all, you know, what are the moments that you have held on to? What are the things that you are most proud of? What were our growth moments? And then just some reminders of the things that we've done. We opened 2 weeks before lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that was our first big pivot. So I'm like, from that point, right, we've hosted the Inglewood Community Fridge, we've built abolitionist pods, we hired a team, we had our fellowship for abolition and advancement of creative economy, we've hosted multiple exhibitions, we've done a film festival, we've done a lot. So would love to hear what are you most fond of, what are you most proud of, what did you learn the most from, etc.
I think the thing that sticks out in my mind from like the beginning of Crenshaw Dairy Mart, of just like coming in here and hustling and, you know, working long hours, I'm just very grateful for the team that we have now. It's just like to spread the workload and to be sustainable is one thing that I'm very, very grateful, but also just to be working alongside some amazing people, you know. Also building that relationship with them and having that love and just the same love that we have and the same respect that we have for each other. Like it goes throughout all the team members, and just to see that the team grow puts everything into perspective, that we're doing something right and we're also providing jobs. And that was one of our things that we talked about in the 2 years of incubation. And you know, I'm just really happy that we're able to provide in that way to you know, our team?
I will say that in the last 5 years, the things that have been like the most exciting to me is when we're all like hanging out and just spitballing ideas.
Yes.
And the abolitionist pod happens. Or we're like sitting around and our ED is like, I want to put on a film festival. And then it happens. Or one of our studio mates, who isn't our studio mate anymore, Jake Freilich, is like, I want to do these art kits for during the pandemic for children. And we link with Lauren Halsey with Some of Everything, and then it happens. Like, or like Juicewood and Vern Yancey coming to the Dairy Mart, being like, can we do an Inglewood fridge? Like, people from the neighborhood, like, seeing the value and like collaborating with us, and then it happens. Like, every moment that we've had a vision for this place, it actually happens. And it's really inspiring because we never are like, that's too big of an idea, or like, that's too hard. We are often like, let's figure it out. Let's talk to people. Let's try this out, and let's be ambitious. And it's been really powerful to be a part of an ambitious team that like really is excited about the values, you know?
Reflecting on these 5 years, I feel, I think like rewinding and thinking of those moments where we were sharing from the archives of the LA Public Library on, you know, Dale Brockman Davis and the Brockman Gallery, and thinking of our vocabulary that we were identifying then, that when Black artists and artists of color were building their own spaces, they were doing it out of frustration of the larger arts economy and the arts world. And I'm thinking a lot about how those artists often, we identified it then, were often also in precarious positions where they were like having these liminal roles and multi-hyphenate roles. They were artists hyphen gallerists hyphen curators hyphen arts administrators, and all these many hats that they're playing. Often it's like these conditions of survival. And I think a lot about the many years and our team and the arcs and our many team members that we've been growing together, and the many hats that each of our team members bring. We have team members who are artists and have worked in arts nonprofits, and we have artists who are on this team who have never worked in arts nonprofits. Just like really like moved by the ways that in a non-traditional artist space, we've been able to grow together and learn the limits of each other and do this beautiful dance with one another in a way that like some of us may have never imagined to have grown in this much, and have also the care and love to see each other's growth and skill sets as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been something so powerful in this reflection of just transformation in 5 years of cultivating new skill sets.
So I guess I came in year 2, 2021.
Yeah, wow.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. I think that my favorite things that we have done have all been our pivots, specifically the way in which we are able to be responsive to what we're witnessing the folks around us need. And the best part of that being that each and every time we pivot, our foot is staying on our values. And each new project or partnership or undertaking, that is always the anchor, and we're able to connect it back. And so, you know, opening up with an exhibition, witnessing the pandemic and creating the abolitionist pods, right? Or, you know, the fellowship trying to meet the needs of artists and what you all did not receive as artists, and wanting to create a new world for artists, and including the film festival being a community responsive event. I appreciate that every single time that we are pivoting or shifting direction, it's still in deep alignment with what we want to be doing, what we feel like we need to be doing, and what our values are anchoring us and telling us to do. As I vision our year 5 and beyond, I honestly just see us continuing to pivot and two-step in the UNK fashion, right? And continuing to do the same thing. Like I know that this year in particular, we're really centered on amplifying our space as a community gathering space. We're amplifying, honoring our elders that you spoke about, right? And really just being that sanctuary of care and creativity. But I also feel like year 5 feels like the year that we're also leaning on our community to support us in the way that we have offered support, and it being as reciprocal as it's always been, right? We've always moved in really caring and nurturing ecosystems for all of the projects we've ever done. Again, like we've never done them alone. We've always brought in folks. We've always built these really meaningful relationships, and it feels like this year feels like the return of that, and like the return on that reciprocal relationship. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how we continue to move in sync, like as a team, but also in sync like with our folks, and just like the collective like visioning and imagination and practice that will come of that. But I'm also curious to hear if there's anything that y'all are looking forward to or excited about for our next year plus.
I really, really want to do the project that we pitched around this community stories around the Mart. Like it feels like a really important project to create or continue. And the idea is that like this neighborhood, this community, this Dairy Mart has served so many people the way we have and the context we have, and I really want to like get those stories and like archive them and like make them like an LA offering, an Inglewood offering. The spirit of this place is about gathering, and we've like continued that. So I really think about that a lot. I constantly think about like the ethos of the Dairy Mart. While this building and structure is like so beautiful and important, like it lives in us, and like and it will reverberate forever because it has to. Like it's legacy, it's lineage.
I guess the thing that I just look forward for is, and I mean, and I'm also very thankful, just for another year, of continuing the Dairy Mart and continuing to grow and doing all the projects that we're doing, and as we grow, getting to know more of our neighbors, being in touch with more of the heartbeat of Inglewood. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a process too, and I love how Patrisse was talking about these stories. Yesterday, a neighbor came by that used to live in the neighborhood and asked me like, what is this space? And I explained to him, and he mentioned his memories of this space and how special it was to him, and his memories of coming to the Dairy Mart and grabbing his snacks. And so this is the Crenshaw Dairy Mart is an anchor for many people in this area.
I think I've been just reflecting on the importance of how CDM has been building a small yet mighty archive of sorts of community members and organizational partners, at least so far, for our Abolitionist Pod project. And I feel like it's really left a mark on just our collaborators, and the importance of those moments being indexed and recorded is so obvious sometimes, but sometimes it's not, specifically when we're gathering stories of moments on a project when folks are mobilizing during the onset of a pandemic, the onset of an uprising, and mobilizing to do food and mutual aid projects, food justice and mutual aid projects. And having that being recorded has been such a testament to us and the way that we're propelling into new programs. And I'm thinking a lot about our forthcoming programs and like gathering more archives with community members and working more with organizational leaders and collaborators and elder arts organizations and contemporary arts organizations to gather more oral history archives, and just having that being collated by the Crenshaw Dairy Mart as a community space, I think is very important for a community space to steward those memories.
That's all for now. I love you all very much. I'm so grateful to do this work with y'all. Until next time.
Ash. Thank you for being such a bright light and an amazing leader, Ash. And I love the both of y'all so much.
Thank you.
Grateful for this.
Thank you, Ashley.